is Shiloh and welcome back to my channel. It is finally past June 19th, which means that we can talk about the last act without any risk of spoilers. As you can see from the title, this video is going to be entirely Jax-centric, and it's going to be my longest video ever, so strap in. I am admittedly a cheerleader for Jax, and as we go through this video, I want to explain why I ride so hard for him, but I want you to stick with me even if you hate the guy, because by the end of this video, I think you'll be seeing Jax in a different light. You might even recognize parts of yourself in him. Before we get into the psychology, meat and potatoes of it all, I think it's important for me to talk about my background, not because I'm an authority on the matter by any means, but because it gives context to my statements. So I have a counseling background with a master's in psychology, and I've worked with kids like Jax, which is probably why I have such a soft spot for him. So like I said, this is going to be a long video. So strap in everyone, it's gonna get a little uncomfortable. Grab a drink, grab a snack, get all comfy and cozy because we are going to be here for a while. Let's talk about Jax. One thing I want to note about Jax that will become important and very apparent throughout this whole video is that as much as Jax bullies everyone else, he bullies himself the most. And that in no way is saying that his abuse of others is acceptable, because it's definitely not. But it's important to note that the person Jax bullies the most is Jax. The way he talks to himself is so mean. He mocks himself, tells himself how stupid he looks, taunts himself to cry and then mocks himself for crying. And if these are the things that he's saying to himself out loud, I can only imagine the torture he's inflicting on himself internally. Jax has a lot of childhood wounds, one of them being his inability to show vulnerability, and that brings us to Jax's parents. This is what we know from what Jax tells Ribbit. He tells her that he had a bad relationship with his parents that only got worse when he started high school. He says that he was never close to his father, who wasn't there for him, and that he constantly felt like a burden and a disappointment. And when Jax's mom and dad split up, he never saw his dad again.
I had a weird relationship with my parents. They split when I was just starting high school. I was never close with my dad. He was there, but he also kind of wasn't. He never seemed proud of me, and I always felt like a disappointment to him. Like I could never live up to his standards. When they split up, I just never saw him again.
Jax's dad seems like a real piece of work. He constantly degraded him, told him he was a burden and inconvenience, and then after he divorced Jax's mom, he abandoned them. He just left. What I find interesting is in the final episode, we even see a glimpse of how abusive his dad was to him. In the final episode, when Pomni is in Jax's abstracted mind, there is a scene with 3 exaggerated versions of Jax, along with a quieter, sweeter 4th version of Jax who is chained to a piano. This 4th version of Jax, the one that's chained to the piano, this is Kid Jax. This is Jax's inner child.
Don't forget about me. I can play the piano. You know, if you have to say you can play the piano, it makes it seem like you can't actually play. Yeah, just shut up and play!
You have Kid Jax saying, "I can play the piano," and in the next moment you have one of Jax's alters throw a beer bottle at Jax while he's at the piano, screaming at him to just shut up and play. That to me was Jax's father, and this entire scene is something he probably experienced over and over again as a kid. We don't have a whole lot of information on Jax's dad, we just know that he was an asshole who left. But I think the scene at the piano is a nod to Jax's childhood and how his dad verbally berated him growing up. Then we have Jax's mom, who honestly isn't any better, and in some ways, she's worse.
I thought I got along better with Mom, but after he was gone, she changed. When I showed weakness, I was less of a man than him. When I lashed out, I was just as bad as him. It was confusing. It was like she missed him, but also hated him. And I became the target of all that.
Jax says to Ribbit that he found his mom's behavior confusing after his dad walked out, and I could totally see why. She would complain when Jax would yell, saying that he was just as awful as his father, and then if he cried, she'd mock him for being less of a man. She loved him and hated him. Her behavior was hot and cold, on and off. Not only that, but Jackson trusted his mom at his most vulnerable moment. And this to me is the pivotal turning point when it comes to Jax's personality. What we know from his conversation with Ribbit is that he told his mom something significant and deeply personal. We don't know what his exact words were to his mom, but from context clues we can infer that Jax told his mom something about his gender identity, something I'll get more into later. So we have Jax, who already has zero self-worth, who was just abandoned by his abusive father, presenting his most vulnerable self to his mother, the one person in his life programmed to give unconditional love, and she laughs at him. She laughed at him. This is the significant turning point in Jax's life because it reinforced his own beliefs that he was worthless, and it instilled this falsehood that showing vulnerability equates to being mocked. Whatever it was that Leroy brought up to his mom that night was said in his most vulnerable state, and he was mocked for it. I want to go back to the bar scene in episode 5 because it makes so much more sense now with context. Like I suspected in one of my previous videos, the reason Jax has that look on his face after Ragatha tells her own abuse story is because he has experienced the same abuse with his own mother. That look he gives is one of understanding. In the same way that Ragatha was berated by her own mother, so was Jax. Jax tells Ribbit that he told his mother something deeply personal that caused her to berate and insult him for an extended period of time.
I told her something I regret telling her. Something deep and personal that I thought would get her off my back. But she laughed at me. Then she went off on me, and it didn't stop. Personal, degrading insults that felt like it went on forever. And despite all that, the thing that bothered me most was, at the end of all of it, she hugged me.
And again, we have confirmation to why Jax views vulnerability the way he does and why he is so skeptical when people show him love. He tells Ribbit a few times how confusing it is. Like he doesn't understand his mom's actions or what part he plays in it. And when Jax describes the love-hate, on-again, off-again feelings his mom has for him, what Jax is describing is known as emotional incest. It sounds bad because it is. Jax's mom had no emotional boundaries when it came to him, and she treated him as an extension of his father. Jax says it was like she hated him, but missed him, and he became the target of that, and it was confusing. And this is basically confirmation that he was a victim of emotional incest. Now, this form of abuse is typically harder to recognize compared to other forms because it's not overt. Now, I can talk about this for a while, but for the sake of time, I will leave you with this. Emotional incest is when a parent or primary caregiver relies on the child to get their own emotional needs met. The relationship is not physical or sexual in nature, but it is inappropriate. When a parent or caregiver engages in covert incest, boundaries are blurred and the impacts can be significant and long-lasting. And we've seen these long-lasting impacts manifested in Jax, such as the following. We have an impaired sense of trust, impulse control, inability to recognize your own emotional needs, inability to care for your own emotional needs, low self-worth, panic attacks, and depression. When it comes to Jax or anyone really, it's important to note that we become our beliefs. Our beliefs about ourselves are self-fulfilling prophecies. And what you tell yourself, you believe, and what you believe about yourself is what you base your decisions on. So whatever you believe your truth is, that is your truth, even if it's false. Jax tells himself that he's worthless, that he's a bad person, he's stupid, a burden, an inconvenience. And he takes certain situations that have happened to him, like his mother laughing in his face at his most vulnerable and his father abandoning him, and he uses that data to reinforce those negative self-beliefs about himself. Every decision he makes is based off of this foundation. It's why he doesn't trust Ribbit to keep his secret, and it's why he purposely pushes everyone away. Trauma rewires your brain, and I mean this scientifically, it's a fact. Prolonged psychological abuse causes physical changes in the body. The fear center in your brain gets activated, and your prefrontal cortex shrinks, which is the decision-making part of your brain, and you begin to have chronic issues with impulsivity, disassociation, emotional dysregulation, mania, the desire to escape reality, extreme trust issues, and the list goes on. It's basically every negative thing we see in Jax. He's a textbook example of trauma rewiring your ability to cope. And we're also talking about a 22-year-old kid here. The brain isn't fully developed until the age 26, so you have an undeveloped brain that's been rewired from abuse. Then you add in the unregulated and probably undiagnosed depression and suicide ideation, the identity dysphoria, the incident with his mom, and then you add in the fact that he's been stuck in this digital hellhole without the tools or wherewithal to work on said trauma. And holy fuck, it's honestly commendable he held it together for as long as he did. Now, I want you to recognize what I'm saying here. We can hold people accountable and point out the things that they've done that are not acceptable and still have empathy for them. This isn't an either-or situation. This isn't about painting someone with broad strokes. We need to read between the nuances and see the gray area, that we can hold people accountable for their wrongful actions and still have empathy for them. We can hate someone for the things they say and do, but try to see the why behind it. And what I'm getting at is the trauma is not Jax's fault, but it is his responsibility. Jax had a responsibility to heal his own trauma, and he failed to do that. He let fear overcome him, and instead of working on himself, he selfishly chose to put his own wounds above the safety of others. And that is not okay. His behavior towards Gangle is not okay, his behavior towards Ribbit is not okay, but I challenge you to think about it with this added context. Jax knows his behavior was deplorable. What hurts the most, to me at least, is the knowledge that Jax despises himself and he despises his actions. He hates himself more than he hates anyone else, and he hates Pomni in particular, and I'm putting hate in quotes here because he also loves her, but he hates Pomni because she holds a mirror up to him. She makes it impossible for him to turn away and pretend that reality does not exist. Jax hates her because he hates himself, and that's what's so devastating about Jax in my opinion. He gets how fucked up his behavior is, but because he's decided he doesn't deserve to be saved and he doesn't deserve to be loved, he digs his heels in and continues the cycle of abuse. Breaking the habit of being ourselves is the hardest thing you'll ever do, and Jax wasn't willing to believe he didn't deserve to suffer. My understanding of episode 9 and the entire series in general is that Jax is either trans, gender fluid, or struggling in some form with his gender identity. In the same way that Gangle's and Zubal's issues aren't explicitly spelled out to the show, we can still infer what is being conveyed, right? So to me, the same can be said for Jax. Was it explicitly stated that he was trans femme or genderqueer or somewhere within the LGBTQ+ spectrum? No, but the show gives us enough obvious nods, in my opinion. Excluding the fact that the creator of the show is a trans woman, let's look at the not-so-subtle clues scattered throughout the series. Jax's room is pink and purple, and like his own avatar color scheme, it's stereotypically girly. As I've stated in previous videos, due to Kane's inability to truly understand humans, as with their avatars, their bedrooms mock them to some degree. We've talked about how Zubal's room is full of mirrors enforcing her body dysmorphia. The same can be said for Jax's room, which is stereotypically feminine, enforcing his gender dysmorphia. The maid outfit is interesting because it's not so much the outfit itself, but the reaction he has to it. He was thoroughly triggered, very, very embarrassed. And we've seen Jax in goofy outfits before. I mean, look at the weird Steve Irwin safari look. But the maid outfit struck a chord. A French maid's outfit is overtly feminine and historically submissive. And during this scene in the Russian dub, Jax actually refers to himself as a femboy. It's an interesting phrasing, and this could be a translation or cultural difference, but I do think it's important to note. Another nod to the queer identity / trans femme theory being correct, and a really important one at that, is Riley's bar. We're told that Leroy frequents Riley's inclusive, i.e. queer-friendly bar. And yeah, you don't need to be queer to visit a queer bar, but for Jax, this seems like a massive step forward in his personal self-acceptance. The Jax we meet in the circus pokes Zubul constantly about their sexual identity, saying things like,
"You know your way around alcohol, huh?"
Yeah, this was one of my suggestions. I worked at a bar briefly. I like making drinks.
That sounds fitting for you.
I know there's an implication there, but I can't be to figure it out.
So,
yeah, I was a tattoo artist for a couple years.
a bartender and a tattoo artist? You're killing me here, Zuby. Because something different happens with each person. For instance, Kinger starts glowing, Ragatha's hair noodles stick up, Gangle's mask starts spinning, and Zubul turns straight.
My limbs straighten up and fuck off.
this is all Jax projecting. He's jealous of Zubul because they're so comfortable in their own identity. He wants that for himself, but he's too scared to entertain the possibility, so he projects. And the fact that Leroy, 5 years post-Jack's brain scan, frequents Riley's gay bar is indicative of his progress. Jax's torture scene in episode 8 is a recreation from that night, the one with his mom. But this is the moment before I even saw the last act that I was like, oh, okay, Jax is struggling with his gender. And I think for a lot of people, this scene was the big turning point in the Jax is trans theory. We see his skin get torn off of his body and he folds his arms in front of his chest as though trying to protect himself. He holds on to his outer self so that no one can see who he truly is underneath. But it's the way he shields himself in that moment, the way he's protecting his true form. This is such powerful imagery when it comes to gender dysphoria. In the final episode, when Pomni is in Jax's abstracted mind, she encounters exaggerated versions of him. Some of the things they state are interesting and to me lends more credence to the Jax has issues with his femininity theory. In the scene I touched upon earlier with the 3 exaggerated versions of Jax and his child version self chained to the piano, one of them states,
How the hell did you get in here? We have a strict no girls allowed policy.
no girls allowed, which is obviously juvenile, but another nail in the coffin that he has inner turmoil regarding his femininity. He also says,
That's not reality, though.
Oh boy,
Why does that
reality's
matter?
gay.
which again, juvenile and bullying to himself, and he says that he's only wearing the maid outfit ironically, which proves how little he cares, which is a lie, and again, him trying to compensate. But most importantly, within this abstracted world of multiple doors with multiple Jaxes, there is one door that has been bolted shut and locked with chains. The avatar is even scratched off, hiding whatever version of Jax lies within. I believe this is the female version of Jax, or perhaps Jax as he wishes to be. And when that version of Jax knocks to be let out, which happens close to when he says no girls allowed, all 3 versions of Jax turn towards the door with such fear and anger and tells them to shut up.
Wah. Where's the levity? Shut up!
All of this has such queer subtext to it, pointing out how distraught he is over his identity. The scrubbed off avatar of that chain door was done intentionally. For Jax, it's an image of himself that nobody should ever be allowed to see, not even himself, so he blocks out that possibility entirely. Interesting thing to note here, the Animagus figurine that's advertised at the end of the film is of Jax sitting in front of that exact door with the avatar on the door obscured with a sticky note and covered with the facade of his fake smile. And to me, this only drives home how important this scene is. Jax shows examples of toxic masculinity throughout the entire series. Some of the comments he makes are more tongue-in-cheek, like when he talks about his body being peak male performance and when he asks Pomni if she can handle him in all of his glory. But the most predominant form of toxic masculinity that Jax inflicts on himself is after Kaufmo abstracts. I'm glad they circled around to this because for a while, everyone was confused on the status of Jax's friendship with Kaufmo because based on what we saw in the pilot episode, it didn't seem like he cared all that much that Kaufmo abstracted. But thanks to the finale, we get to see what was really going on with Jax behind the scenes. So after Jax flees Kaufmo's room and prior to meeting back up with Gangle and Kinger, he stops himself in the hallway and looks at himself in the mirror and taunts himself.
You're not looking too good. You gonna cry? Looking like this?
This is Jax repeating things that his parents have told him. Both his mom and his dad would mock him for crying, tell him that he wasn't enough of a man, he was less of a man than his father, and so he had toxic masculinity coming from both sides. Even Jax's real name, Leroy Mateo, adds another layer of hurt. Mateo is a typical Filipino surname, and Leroy appears to be Filipino or Southeast Asian descent of some sort. And Leroy is an old and classic name, perhaps even Jax's father's name. And if that is true, then the need to live up to this masculine ideal becomes even more layered. And if you're still not convinced that the Jax is trans or Jax is queer or Jax is struggling with his gender identity theory is correct, here are the 3 biggest hints that this theory is true. In episode 6, Jax bursts out with,
What's wrong with you?
Why didn't you fight back?
Oh, here we go. Because I didn't fight back, that means I secretly care about you? I'm just a misunderstood little chicken fetus in an egg that needs to be cracked open. Well, I am not.
In the trans community, an egg refers to a cis person that doesn't yet realize they are trans, and them coming to the realization that they are is referred to as cracking the egg. And I don't think this is a stretch at all. Gooseworx is obviously part of the trans community, so she would have context for this analogy. This song will forever be changed for me and will make me cry every time I hear it. Side note, this song came on when I was at work and I legitimately almost burst into tears. Isn't She Lovely plays over Jax's final montage with Pomni, and I think this is the biggest flashing light saying trans femme. The song is referring to Jax, and I don't think it's being used ironically. Some people have said that the song is referring to Pomni, but that doesn't make sense because, yes, Pomni is in some of the flashbacks we see, but she is not in all of them. The person we see who is in all of them is Jax. Now, important thing to note about this song, it was written by Stevie Wonder for the birth of his daughter. The song is literally about a baby girl being born, and this is Jax finding some love for who he really is. Here's a tweet from gooseworx circa 2017 when she was 22. Now let me repeat, she was 22 in 2017. Who else is 22 in 2017? If you said Jax, you are correct. I genuinely believe that Jax is supposed to be the alternative version of Goose had she not transitioned. Goose said herself that Jax is a self-insert, or at the very least draws inspiration from her own experiences. So for everyone complaining about Jax being too central to the story, that's kind of the whole point. Jax's character arc is centered around the cautionary tale of the issues that arrive when you're not being true to yourself. And life imitates art, and this is Goose's story. It makes sense that Jax would be the main front and center focus. It also makes the stuck in a digital circus forced to perform metaphor of the Amazing Digital Circus more amazing in terms of storytelling. Like, this whole thing is genius and personal and is a red, shiny, flashing beacon saying Jax is dealing with complicated feelings associated with his gender. And last but not least, we have the bow. But let's break down that entire scene with Ribbit. After Jax opens up to Ribbit, when she places her bow tie on his ear like a hair bow, he smiles, a real smile, not a masked smile. He blushes, he relaxes his shoulders, and he ducks his head in the first submissive gesture we have ever seen Jax do. He leans into it. Cinematically, this is important. This to me is a smoking gun that lends credence to the Jax is trans or Jax is gender questioning theory. The bow is notoriously feminine. Think about cartoons, for example. Think Mickey Mouse or Looney Tunes. Historically, the hair bow is the only stylized choice separating male and female characters. Jax wears the bow in his most pivotal backstory scene, going from a masculine gender presentation to a feminine one. Another thing to note about this scene is that we see Jax's flashbacks with Ribbit in a first-person perspective. But the big moment when he confides in Ribbit, when he puts his walls down, the camera switches to third-person point of view. To me, this implies that in that moment, Jax is seeing himself for the first time, like his body belongs to him for the first time ever. Because the moment Kaufmo knocks on the door, jolting him out of his comfortable state, that panic sets in again, because the shame of others finding out who he is way too much for him to bear. So he rips off the bow, and the camera immediately pans back to first-person point of view. He's once again disassociating. His body isn't his anymore. We also have Ribbit saying straight after putting the bow in his hair,
"Your secret's safe with me."
And that is usually indicative of someone coming out of the closet. In my opinion, trying to make an argument as to how Jax's story is an allegory for anything other than transgender or gender questioning would be more of a stretch than analyzing the facts. All of that combined with the heavy emphasis on Jax's issues with femininity, some flavor of gender questioning makes the most sense here. I don't see how else to interpret Jax blushing when a bow is put in his hair, or Jax having something extremely personal to tell his mom that ends up with him getting mocked, or the "Isn't She Lovely" song being played at that exact scene, which, like I said, Stevie Wonder wrote for the birth of his daughter. I think they left it a bit ambiguous for a reason, mostly because so many people within the LGBTQIA+ community can relate to Jax's experience. Also, trans women can still present and dress masculine, so just because Leroy doesn't change his pronouns doesn't mean he doesn't identify as such. There's so many nuances in gender and sexuality, and one person's experience doesn't have to dictate someone else's. Jax's abstraction was abrupt, and that was kind of the point. Jax's abstraction happening off-screen was an accurate portrayal of what it feels like to lose someone to suicide. It's not flashy, it's not cinematic, it's not heroic, it's abrupt. It leaves us feeling empty, and that was done purposefully. I'm hoping no one listening to this has ever had an experience with suicide, but if you have, you'll know that Jax being in the room with Pomni prior to him abstracting and everything seeming normal, there's no immediate warning signals going off, and then suddenly he's just gone. And that's exactly what it feels like. I've never seen suicide portrayed so accurately in the media before, and it was a bold move by Glitch, and one that I appreciate. I appreciate the suddenness and cruelty of the way Jax's abstraction was portrayed on screen. Like, one moment he's there and the next he's gone. And Pomni, like most people when they've lost someone to this type of loss, is left thinking, I wish I would have cried more. As I said in a previous video, you can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. The only thing you can do is be there for them and love them through their worst. Pomni had been reaching out to Jax both figuratively and literally throughout this entire series, and he wouldn't take it. With Jax, it wasn't a matter of if he abstracts, but when. What's heartbreaking about Jax is that he has self-awareness after he's abstracted.
Why are you here? You know everything now. So why are you here? Just to rub every mistake I've ever made in my face? I'm a terrible person. Is that what you want me to say? I already know I am. So why does anybody still care about me? You're not supposed to care. You're not supposed to miss me. You're not supposed to love me. This isn't how this is supposed to go. Please. Leave me alone. You're making this so much harder. You're making this so much harder.
You should have just talked to me, man.
It's too late. I did this to myself. There's no coming back from this.
Then talk to me now.
He tells Pomni, there's no saving me, I did this to myself. You're not supposed to miss me, you're not supposed to love me. I don't know how anyone hears these words and doesn't immediately feel for the kid. The conversation that Gangle and Zubul have in episode 6, it hits even harder when you keep Jax in mind.
How are you supposed to like the part of yourself that just makes you worse than everyone else?
'Cause it exists. It's a part of you that's real. And the only you that you should care about is the real you. You have to choose to love yourself, even if it doesn't make sense. It's not natural, it's intentional.
Zubul could have been talking to Jax in this moment, and I wish they would have, because I think Jax needed to hear this more than anyone else. Similarly, when Kinger talks to Pomni in episode 3, I wish Jax could have been there to hear that as well. Kinger says,
I know how I can feel in this circus. Sometimes it all just feels pointless.
Yeah.
But it's not. Not if you have people who care about you. Good memories can do a lot. Hold on to them. And cherish the people around you. You never know when they'll be gone. In this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone think they're not wanted or loved.
Even the conversation that Kinger has with Ragatha in episode 6, Ragatha says that she failed Jax, and Kinger tells her,
relationships are two-sided, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to do all the heavy lifting when the other isn't in the mood. We all go through and deal with things differently, and sometimes you just need to let people do things their own way, as long as you're still there when they need you. Giving someone space should never be the same as giving up on them.
And God, that hurts so bad, because ultimately, that's how we've come to view abstraction. Abstraction is not a choice Jax made. It's a limitation of the setting. It's what happens when someone hurts so bad that their mind file starts to break down. The tragedy of the Amazing Digital Circus is that the human couldn't love himself enough to escape his own flaws, but the AI could. Jax's flaw wasn't that he could never change. It was that he wouldn't allow himself to be saved. We saw signs that Jax was capable of change throughout the final 5 episodes. He chose to open up to Pomni, seemingly for the first time since Ribbit abstracted. He chose not to isolate himself in episode 8, staying with the group after Zubul reaches out. He embraces Pomni in episode 9, clinging to her, laying himself emotionally bare instead of pushing her away like he did in episode 6. Jax was capable of change, but he didn't feel he deserved to be saved. And that's the difference between Jax's abstraction and Kane's redemption. Jax is arguably the most human of the group. He's a cautionary tale. He wasn't a bad person. He was an abandoned kid with no self-worth, no identity to latch onto, no positive examples of love in his home life, and was most notably shown that vulnerability is a weakness, something to be laughed at and mocked for. Love him or hate him, the Jax that we see in the circus never stood a chance. By making Kane be the one to find redemption, it shows the audience that nobody is truly beyond hope, but it is up to the individual to make that happen. So like I said, the Jax that we know, the copy of him that we see in the circus, that Jax failed. He failed to take responsibility for his trauma and not let that cycle of abuse continue. But there is hope because Leroy, real life Jax that is 5 years post brain scan, seems to have made a lot of changes for the good. That's why I find the ending so hopeful yet devastating at the same time. Because the Jax we see in the circus, the mind scan of Leroy Mateo from 2012, that is a version of him that was scanned at his lowest point in the darkest moment of his life. Leroy had his brain scanned and uploaded into the CNA computer at the worst possible time. And that is the Jax we meet in the circus. I mean, honestly, imagine it. Think of the worst moment in your life and the lowest, rock bottom point of your life you've ever been in. And imagine that is the moment your brain gets scanned. Like the worst version of Leroy is what was uploaded to the CNA server. And that's why I say Jax, the one that we see in the circus, why he never stood a chance, because it was such horrific timing. But I think it's a true testament to his resilience and the fact that he is a redeemable character that we see Leroy 5 years post brain scan having made these amazing strides in the right direction. The saddest thing is that Jax never saw what happened after that night. He never saw that his mother was fine and that he got his life together. He roomed with a friend, he was able to hold down a job and eventually able to make rent. He doesn't have any idea that any of that happened. And this is me just being hopeful and trying to cope, but now that Pomni and the others are aware of this information, I hope they share it with him. I hope they tell him that, who he is in the real world and how much healing he was able to do. Because to know there is a version of yourself who is able to change and put in the hard work and come out the other side a better, stronger, happier person, it has to give him a sense of hope that he too can come out on the other side. Which leads us to our final chapter, which is about hope. Now, when someone tells a story like Jax's, the importance of understanding his behavior is key. Because if you don't understand why he is the way he is, then telling the story is kind of pointless. So before people jump at me in the comments, no one is trying to justify anything, but we're meant to learn from his behavior and to understand why it happened. Jax's flaw wasn't that he was beyond redemption. It's that he simply believed that that was the case. Now, abstraction to me reads as a collapse of stability, the kind of collapse that happens when a person goes beyond what they can reasonably handle and the mind file starts to break down. For any of my psychology lovers out there, you may know the book The Body Keeps the Score, and that's essentially what this is to me. Jax couldn't speak his truth, but his body needed to, and his body couldn't hide the pain and the suffering any longer. Jax responded to Pomni when she reached out to him, and to me that feels less like he's gone forever and more like he's still in there, he's just not able to come back yet. Pomni doesn't just reach his abstracted body, she reaches something inside, some part of Jax that is aware enough that he gives her the key, which means that he's not gone. But being reached out to and being ready to return are two very different things. And here's the silver lining. To me, the darkness of abstraction is almost his saving grace. It's a reset because it keeps Jax from being hurt more. It allows him the chance to heal, to process, to hit pause. And that matters. Pomni saw all of it. She saw who Jax was, the shame he carried, the part he played in Ribbit and Kaufmo's abstraction, and despite all of that, she chose to love him. And I think that's going to be the key in healing Jax. Healing him will work, it will just take time. Showing the abstracted characters swimming in the water and interacting behind the glass at the end of the episode, to me that implies that they're working on finding a way to integrate them with everyone, even if they aren't able to turn them back. Personally, I believe they'll find a way to undo abstraction, and functionally, they have all of eternity to figure it out. So that's all I have for you today. Over 30 minutes of a deep dive into Jax and the psyche of his mind. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment below on what you thought. If you have any contradictory points, if you agree, if you disagree, even just what you thought of the finale, I'd love to hear it, and I hope you all have a great day.